This program is presented every Tuesday at 7 p.m. New York time. My name is Mark Beecher, and I'll be your host tonight. My special guest tonight is Mr. Pablo Morano, noted speaker, trainer, and author on all aspects of channeling. Pablo is joining us tonight from his home in Chile. Welcome, Pablo, and please join us and introduce yourself in the topic of who do you contact when channeling? So good evening, Pablo.
Good evening, Mark. Thank you very much for inviting me, and also Ernie over there. Thank you for inviting me once again to be here. So yeah, I want to speak a little bit about who do we contact when we channel. I've been teaching channeling for now it's like 12 years already. So I'm going all through Latin America teaching, but also have had the opportunity to have a couple of teaching sessions in English in the US. So it's been a pleasure working with Ernie and everyone around, and sharing this beautiful information that is channeling and everything that has to do with it in such a time that I believe we really needed to be able to get in contact with ourselves in a better way and with the spiritual side of things as well.
Very good. I mean, it's a topic I think everybody's interested in, particularly people that believe in it, and we want to know more about it. And it's also a matter of making it interesting to people that don't necessarily believe in it, and maybe getting some interest growing in those topics. It's even the scientific community in America anyway is interested in aspects of spirituality and channeling and communications. So it's growing. It's a growing field.
Yeah, it's gathering momentum for sure. There have been a lot of studies recently about how channeling works and what happens around people at channels also when they are in contact or in trance during the trance channeling sessions. And there have been a couple of studies made in Jefferson University about 10-12 years ago about how the brain works when someone is in that contact, and they have been very, very interesting in the sense that the frontal lobe of the brain changes when someone is on that mediumship trance. So it's something pretty interesting that is getting more and more validation as well from the scientific point of view. But the main, at least for me, the main question that arises is who are we talking to, or what are we talking to when this happens?
Correct, and I think that's the question we all have. It's growing through social media a lot, particularly TikTok. People are doing all sorts of presentations. And so the question is, who are we contacting? How are we contacting? And what information are we receiving from the universal site, I guess it would be.
Right.
So I guess the first question is, what's the difference between a medium and a channel?
That's very, very important, very interesting. At least from my point of view, there is first a history time gap between a medium and a channeler. Firstly, because the medium is earlier in history, we can say, because we have to go back to the 1800s to find out the first mediums that get in touch with deceased people, with dead people. That's like the main thing that the mediums go to, and the spiritualism goes to when they try to get in touch with whatever it is in the other side. So any kind of interaction from spiritualists in the 1800s go through the idea that we can only get in touch with people that were formerly incarnated in a body, and they used to be alive, and now they are alive in a whole different sense. Meanwhile, the channeler is somehow closer to us on what the time is, because channeling comes as a form roughly in the 1960s, mostly with we can say with Jean Roberts, who channels the Seth material, and she's kind of the one that kicks off the idea of channeling and makes it more popular. So instead of just getting in contact with people that were alive before and now are on the other side after they disincarnated, now kind of a new era starts with Jane Roberts and Seth about the humans right now being able to get in touch with other sort of energies or other kind of beings from different places in different realms of or dimensions, if you would, and then that changes a little bit into channeling. So what we usually see as a medium is someone who gets in touch with dead people, and when we hear people talking about channeling, is we're talking about a whole different spectrum of spiritual beings on different realms and different dimensions.
Okay, probably the most famous medium that we know of is Nostradamus. Is he a medium or a channeler?
I would say neither of those, of
Oh,
both.
okay.
Yeah, mainly because he will go into the other side by getting some sort of information in the symbolic world, but I'm not sure if he will actually talk to anybody. You know,
Okay.
there's no incorporation. You know, even in channeling or mediumship, there is some sort of incorporation into your body from that other energy that comes alive a little bit with you and talks through you or gives some sort of information through you. And you need to be in a trance to do that. I believe Nostradamus go into trance, but I'm not sure if he will let the trance speak by itself. You know.
Okay. He was a prognosticator. And it's,
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's just amazing that he would have, even if they were vague, but just things, thousands of years in advance, really.
Right. And that's one of the
And
things.
I guess that's part of the dimensions where everything occurs simultaneously. Because
Yeah, exactly. And that's
yeah,
one of the things that can happen when you go into a trance like that and allow these energies to come forward in this side of the veil.
um, okay. So who do we contact when we're channeling?
Well, that's interesting, and that's why we chose that topic for tonight, because I would say that the first main thing that we need to get to grips with is that whenever we go to the outside spiritual world, the road to get there is actually through inside of us. So we actually always go through our own inner nature, our own inner planes, before we can get in touch with the collective planes or the realms where we are separated. So because then it's like we are, everything is inside of us, everything is inside of you, and then you go to a room where everything is separated a little bit again, and then where everything is all together again. So whenever you get in touch with anything, even if it's a dead being, I mean, someone who was incarnated before, it's kind of strange for me to say that dead being, because they're not really dead, you know, they're still alive.
Right.
But whether it's a spirit that was formerly a human, or another sort of being that's from another dimension, be it an angel, an archangel, or an ascended master or anything, you'll need to go through your inner planes to get there. So most of the people, first they get in touch with a part of themselves that is wanting to speak to them. It's like an inner force that it's in there. Most of the time, that's their own soul trying to get in touch with them. But what happens is that we see it as a separated being, because that's the way that our mind allows us to perceive it. We don't perceive it as something internal. We think it's something external, but that's the way we allow the experience to be in us.
Um, is the whole the whole universal past. Is everything collective within us? Sort of like, we're just finding out all these incredible things about our DNA and about our abilities and everything. And if it's just collectively there and it just needs to be opened, basically.
Somehow it's that. So the figure, the symbol, or the image that your mind actually chooses, it's an image that was there. I mean, it existed somehow. It's there in the collective because it's in the collective memory as well. So it chooses something that resonates with yourself, with the history of your own soul, and at the same time with the things that you need to learn in this life when you see that. So it's a really synchronic way of seeing it. It's in the same way that a rainbow comes up, where you need sunshine to be in one place, rain to be in another place, and then you need to be in a perfect position to be able to look at both and see the rainbow. So this is sort of the same thing, the being that comes up to you. It's a mix of your past lives, your soul experience through time, your experience and your challenges on this life, and at the same time, a being that existed somehow in some moment of time that is important to the history of the humankind.
Do you channel different entities over time? I mean, do you have somebody maybe for a few months or a few years, and then you move on to a different entity, or you have even multiple conversations? I don't know what takes place here.
There are usually three kind of things that can happen in that regard. One is getting in touch with people that were formerly human beings, like we were saying before. That's one of the things that can happen, that you can get in touch with them, and that's what usually is a little bit more accepted by mainstream. Like, yeah, there are people that can talk to people that were here before. Then you have two different sort of experiences. That one is that you get in touch like with many different beings at the same time, and they change depending on where you are, who you're with, the mood you're in can change the being you're getting in touch with. And then there's a third sort, which is the one that I work with, and most of the people that channel a being and write books or give lectures about it, is that you get in touch with the same being for a long time, and you usually build a relationship with that being for that time, and you learn to trust each other on the guidance and what is expected from you on this side of the veil. So what usually happens there is that you get a certain amount of time with that being. Sometimes it could be like a whole lifetime. Sometimes it could be a couple of years and then changes and switches to other one. But that depends a little bit on the challenges of each life of the channeler right here.
Is that being essentially a truth sayer? I mean, they absolutely know the truth, or are they opinionated, or we're looking for universal intelligence to say that this is in fact the way things are.
Right. Yeah, that's an excellent question. I believe, according to what I have seen and experienced, is that in the second case that I talked about before, the one where beings are just switching over from one to the other, usually, what happens is that those beings sometimes, as they are not in a very deep dimension, close or too close to the universal truth, to say it somehow, they are more opinionated, so they kind of have different point of views from a challenge that you're living or a situation that you're going through. Meanwhile, when you're working with just one being, you usually start climbing up closer to the truth with them, So it's not that they never fail or never say anything that's not true, but they are usually have a little bit more of some sort of non-dual experience of talking about things. So at least they're usually less judgmental. They are not bound so much with emotions, for example. So they don't get angry or things like that. You know?
Right. Do they tell us directly to, okay, do this, this is okay, and don't do that, that's that's forbidden type thing, and if you do that, that'll be a big mistake?
No,
No.
usually a good channeling wouldn't tell you that. If someone is like really connected and really in touch with something, these beings are usually they're sentient beings. They usually just suggest paths that you can go through, or just show you different situations or chances that you may take on some particular moments, and then they allow you to just choose them and see what lays after that in the future. So usually when you find someone that is channeling and getting a lot of sentences or a lot of information where they are telling people exactly what is going to happen, or being a little bit dramatic about, if you don't do this bad thing is going to happen with you. Usually you have to be careful with those.
Right. um
Mainly because there is a lot of mind involved in there from the channeler.
yeah. Is there somehow a connection with channeling and the Akashic record, where, I mean, what I know of the Akashic record is it's supposed to be all the information available in one place, basically. Do these beings work with that knowledge?
Yeah, I mean, I like to put it in this way. It's like you usually go to the same place when you channel as the Akashic records. The main difference is that when you try to just get in touch with the Akash directly, it's like you go into a library and you have no guidance for that library. You have to go do it by yourself or just by your higher self. When you channel, you go with someone into the
Right.
library so that someone knows which book or which movie or which story is better for
Right.
you in that moment. So mainly the thing is that I have seen that part of the law of the Akashic records is that when you touch something to watch it, it's like you touch it, you watch it.
Right.
You're gonna go like pick and choosing what kind of memory do you want to get in touch with when you go into the Akashic records. So when you go with a guide or I don't know, an ascended master that goes in there, they show you what you need, because those are, I mean, that is their objective there, to teach you and guide you. But when you go by yourself in there, you usually just are gonna pick and choose something without really knowing what you're picking and choosing. And the thing is that in the Akashic records, you have everything that mankind has ever done, and that means absolutely everything, good and bad, because there's no judgment there of what we have done. So the chances to find something that is not really pretty are a little bit bigger than finding something that's pretty. So that's why I believe it's better to get in touch with someone who knows from the other side what are you picking and what are you going to
Right.
watch. Not just watch anything. It's like you wouldn't let your kids just watch anything on the internet.
Right. Um, when we're trying to develop our channeling abilities, do we ask for a particular personality on the other side? Are we looking for an Aristotle or Confucius or somebody that we believe uh, is very knowledgeable, or just everybody on the other side is very knowledgeable?
No, not everybody is very knowledgeable, but when you're just starting to learn how to channel, it's better to just get in touch with your higher self, like to build up your ability and learn how to open and close the door by yourself in a sort of training way. Like really train yourself to open and close the door with as much confidence as you need to get there. So the way to do it is usually you just ask your higher self to bring you whatever you need at that moment. So the higher self acts as a switchboard to the rest of the universe, so they can guide you to get in touch with what's of benefit for you and someone who might be around you at that time. And then when you start going through a learning process and you know how to get in touch with your higher self in a confident way, and that you have some experience with that, you start searching for a more developed guide, you will say, that will be there that can help you, and then is where you can find those interesting personalities that have been here, or maybe they have never been human but they have something to share with us. But at that moment, one of the things that I like, that I believe is really beautiful about the process, is that you need to accept whoever comes to you as it is, as a master, because you don't choose your teacher. The teacher chooses you. So when the teacher presents himself or herself to you, then you can say, I accept you as my teacher or not. But then if your answer is no, then you probably have to wait a little bit until someone else is available on the other side to get in touch with you, because they are working at the same time we are working.
Well, okay, I have a question. Why are entities on the other side so eager to be helpful to us?
Yeah, that's a good question. What we have found is that as the whole universe goes through different dimensions, all of us are going through a learning experience and an experience to experience things as well. I don't know if it's kind of redundant, but maybe you get the gist of it. It's like we're here to learn and to experience, and everyone in the universe is there on their own dimensions and realms to learn and to experience. And different dimensions and different realms have different sorts of learning experiences that need to be taken care of or need to be lived through. So it's not that every being on the other realms needs to get in touch with us, but there is a sort of a specific realm of beings and specific dimensions that needs us to be in touch with them so we can evolve at the same time. It's like we are entangled together. So the more we can help them on their side, the more they can help us on our side.
Right. So there are beings on the other side that have evolved beyond that, and they no longer need to do that.
Exactly. And there are others that that haven't evolved enough, so they cannot get in touch with us. Okay. So there are both sorts of beings.
Now, as far as human beings, we know that we're conscious beings, and we know that our subconscious is. I think we always used to think it was just the conscious and the subconscious. Mm-hmm. But I think we're developing more categories now. I think maybe at one point you talked about a super conscious. Is that within us as the human beings? And I know I've had conversations before with where we just sort of treat ourselves as radio receivers, and we're just receiving information from other parts of the universe. where maybe we don't have any original ideas. It's just that we're radio receivers and we just receive the input from other places, and we have to act on it that way. So in the superconscious is basically the category of what we're talking about, enabling us to channel.
Yeah, but I would say that for me, the superconscious is the place where you get everything right before, like the Akashic record, to say it somehow, to put it in a map. And the place where we get in touch with the collective energies is like, I believe that we have several super consciousness, to say it somehow, because as well as this whole human race consciousness that we have as a super consciousness, we also have smaller ones that are like bigger groups of where we belong to in different things. So there is a super conscious mind of each family we belong to. There's a super conscious mind to the community we belong to the city we lived in, the country we lived in, and so on and so forth. The place where I work, the building where I live, everything has like its own group mind, to say it somehow. So we get in touch with all of those. And one of the things that we can do as we get there into the higher one is that we actually can open ourselves to wider experiences, like you said, that can come from different places in the universe, and that can allow us to actually get in touch with a whole different experience of creativity, getting in there where our minds are not so judgy about anything, so you can get really creative and see the world and life from a very, very different perspective.
Yeah, because I often think that very creative people, as you just said, their ideas may just be filtering into them from different parts of the universe or different dimensions, or it's like all of a sudden somebody is connected to that dimension and they become very creative in art or music or these types of things.
Right, and there's probably whole different. I mean, there are two things that you need to be really creative. Is one, you really need to have as little judgment for anything as you can, because
Right.
we cannot be completely out of judgment, but we get as close as we can there, and then be in touch with that dimension or realm where music is, or where painting is, or where whatever is. I mean, there's probably a dimension where we get in touch with the whole scientific progress in a very creative way as well. But the thing is that when it comes here, and you get those like really cool, new, groundbreaking scientific ideas, then the human mind comes and the collective idea of how science needs to be done, and then squishes everything together, and we come out with something really limited instead of something really groundbreaking.
Right. I know in some of our discussions, we found that some of these groundbreaking discoveries actually have occurred simultaneously around the world. So it was some universal source that they were picking up on to act on the idea. So,
or even art sometimes. It's not just science, because
yeah.
science has a way to progress where it gets you to a point where something can sprout from anyone. So there are some theories of evolution about that say, well, if it's not Newton, someone else was going to understand gravity, and we'll get the same idea from someone else, and that's probably true. But the thing is that you also have artistic movements coming out from different parts of the world almost at the same time, and from people that didn't know each other.
Right.
And you can see that on modern art or modern music, but at the same time, you can see it very, very roughly on thousands of years back, where the original people will draw something very similar to what someone on the other side of the planet there was no connection whatsoever from them, and they drew something really similar. So it's all in there, in the ideas around in that superconscious.
And that leads me to the thing about traversing all this information, the universality, the other beings that are not human, whatever. What's that? Is this a matter of previous lifetimes? And how many, maybe on average, how many lifetimes do entities go through before they reach higher planes?
I wouldn't know how to answer that exactly, because that's one of the questions that I've been trying to research about, and numbers that come up, I feel they're a little bit like I don't know exactly how to say it, but it's like they come up with numbers that are a little bit odd, in the way that very different people that channel things get different numbers about how many lifetimes you need, or what do you need to do in a lifetime. So I like to answer that question from the experience that I get when I ask that, and what the being that I work with, that we call them Brahman, because they say they don't have a name actually. So so we
Okay.
call them that. And what they have told me, and the group I work with, is that you have like 16 lives going on in a simultaneous way for them, scattered through different parts of the timeline.
Okay.
And they work together to be able to jump into the evolution of those souls all at once. So the thing is that when you see it that way, you're working in tandem with different human experiences in different moments in time, that you can actually ask for help when you need something, so you can be able to solve things and see how the future can work better for you, not in something that needs to be done to be more abundant or having a better house, but on how your soul is going to transcend this plane. So I'm probably making everything a little bit more confused now than what you ask, but that's the kind of answers I get when I ask.
Well, yeah, I generally think that a lot of these questions are questioning the unknown as it is. So we know it's pretty complicated.
Yeah.
We have a question about our intuition, and channeling. Are they connected, or are they different things?
They are connected, absolutely. The intuition is like the front door to channeling. The
Okay.
more you develop your intuition, the more you can develop your channeling abilities. It's a matter of being open to whatever comes up with the intuition. The main difference would be is that when you are working with intuition, you're actually on this in this brainwave of being alert, talking to someone else, of being awake and alert, working on it, and intuition would come up like in between those brain waves. Meanwhile, when you're channeling, we go into a trance and we try to change our brain waves into the theta waves, which are slower and in between being awake and being asleep. So the way it flows, it's a little bit different, because it goes into something that's more continuous over the time when you're connected. Meanwhile, when we're talking in awake right here, intuition just comes up like a drop at a time, or gets in between ideas. So it's kind of harder to recognize, but once you see the path of how that works, it gets a little bit easier. So how do you recognize it? It's like intuition usually has a gap after the idea comes up. What the idea comes from the mind, or your own mental rambling, or your own memory. The mind usually starts to connect things pretty quickly, and you start thinking about something, and then you start going through different ideas connected to that something, and then somehow you find yourself thinking about something completely different from when you started, you know. And it was all connected pretty quickly. So, for example, I'll look at the Tuesday encounters in New York behind you, and I'll see the Statue of Liberty. So, I will say, "Oh, Statue of Liberty. What else is in New York? Oh, it's the Empire State's there too. Oh, and there's the Chrysler Building too over there. And oh, I remember that when I went through the Chrysler Building, I saw something in front of the Chrysler Building, which was, I don't know, a place where you can eat a hamburger. And then I don't know how I got from Tuesday's encounters in New York to the hamburger place in front of Chrysler Building. You know, when intuition comes, you usually get a gap of silence after the idea. So it's like you get the hunch to say it somehow of, I need to call someone, or I need to call my friend who's over there. I need to call Ernie. You know, you start feeling that, and then you get a gap. So what we usually do is try to logically try to fill in that gap on how or why should I call Ernie at that moment? Why should I call my friend? So it's like, I should call him because whatever. So when you learn to actually allow that gap to be there, and try not to fill it with anything at all, and you can sense that emptiness in a while, you can be sure that's your intuition telling you something. The more you practice that, the easier it gets, and the intuition usually starts taking a little bit more of a space between your thoughts when it comes. But that's an ability that needs to be worked on. You need to practice it, and you need to keep practicing, because it's like something that you can really master. But then if you're going through a rough patch and your mind gets too critical about things, it can just take all the space back again, and you'll need to relearn intuition.
Now I know, and I want to see what category this might fall in. I know a large number of people who their parents have passed over, but they're still in constant communication with the ideas of their parents. The parents are still talking to them, and it's it's live for them. It's no doubt in their mind that they're having a constant communication with their parents. And what category does that fall into?
Well, for me, that can be happening. I mean, you can have two kind of things happening over there. One is that you can be getting in touch with your own memories about things, and not having any sort of new information, but just getting a very vivid memory of who they were and how do they guide me, especially if you had a good relationship with them. And that can be one of the things that happens. So this is why you need to start like hoping that you get some sort of proof from them on the other side. Because the other thing that can happen is that you can actually get in touch with them on the other side, and then come up with information and guidance. Usually when this happens, there is some sort of new information coming up. I remember very early on my days of teaching channeling, a guy came to me in Peru that he had I don't remember which sort of business it was, so I will be lying if I said it right now. But it was he was a businessman. It was a family company, and they were having trouble finding a way to open the safe box that their father had on their office, because he passed away, and then he didn't leave any sort of combination. So the guy actually channeled his father, and he gave him the combination to open safe box, and they were able to open it. So that sort of thing, like shows you that there's new information coming up from them that you can know, or that someone that doesn't know knows. As it happened with me, for example, in Bolivia. I'm going to make this story short, but uh, maybe another day I can tell the whole long version. But a couple of ladies came to my class in Bolivia, and what I didn't know was that they were half sisters, and their father had passed away, and they had been estranged from getting in touch with each other because of inheritance problem with their own mothers. But as soon as I saw them, I knew, and they told me. I mean, their father came up on that channeling moment and told me they were sisters, and I needed to do something to help them get together again. So I remember telling that to a friend over there that was the organizer of the of the teaching in Bolivia, and she will tell me like, "You're lying. That's not true. I know them both. They're not related." But I kept telling her, like they are telling me that. I mean, their father is telling me that they are related, they are sisters, and they need to get in touch with each other. And so it happened to be true. Later during the class, they came up, and one of them came up and told me that her sister was there, and that she didn't want to be there with her. So that's when I told her, it's like, I know your father is here, and he's telling me that you need to get in touch with her again. That's why he brought you both to this place right now. So that's what I mean with sort of new information, or that someone that doesn't know about it can get in touch with. So you know that there is some sort of truth to that claim.
I'm going in all different directions here.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, Ernie wants to know who gave you the answers when you won Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
He loves this story. Yeah, I must have been already like 13 years ago. I was in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and it was sort of a special Chilean version. But anyway, the final three answers of the show that allowed me to win. I won like $30,000 on the show at that time. I was working with the guide before the one I worked with. I just told you that I was working with a master that's called Brahman. Before that, I was working with a master that called himself Jacob, and he was the one that was helping me with with those answers over there. And it was pretty funny because I started feeling the whole ideas of the questions beforehand a little bit. So I was there sitting on the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire show with all the lights and the sound they put you to make you feel a little bit tense and nervous with different questions. And this version you had time to answer. So you didn't have any of those safeguards. I don't know how you call it in English, but you have those extra things that you can call someone or ask the audience.
Right.
50-50 and those sides. Well, you didn't have those here. You just had to play with by yourself. And but you had time, so you couldn't just wonder endlessly about anything. So what I did was like when they asked me something I didn't know, I would just concentrate myself, get myself into channeling in a really easy way, and just wait for the screen. We had a screen in front of us with the answers, the four possible answers, and I will just close my eyes and see which one will light up with my eyes closed, and I will feel Jacob like lighting up the one that was, and I will say just this is B. It's option B, and then it will be B. And it was really funny because I was laughing the whole time instead of celebrating, because I could see them on the other side, just like in the way your teammate will be pranking you when you're playing sports
Right.
when I was younger. It was
Right.
the same sort of feeling, that my whole team were pranking me about this, and it was really like a really funny sensation, and a way to show how much this can be real, you know. And I really went into that moment thinking, it's like, I'll make a fool of myself for eternity here, or either proof that this is real, and it happens. So I just gave myself completely to those possibilities, and it came out that it was something wonderful. I remember that after the show went on air, I got people searching for me on the internet, like a lot, and
Yeah.
I got close to 2,000 emails the
Uh,
next morning about what I have done in that moment. Most of my first database of emails I sent things to in Chile was built with that
yeah.
with those people that wrote to me that night.
Um, so we'll get back to the topic. So can everyone be a channel? Can everyone be a channel?
Yes, yes, anyone can do it. Of course, there are people that are gonna be more. That's gonna be easier for them than others, you know,
Right.
because not everyone has the same ability, but everyone can do it. It's just a matter of practicing, and I say that it's like learning to play the guitar. There are gonna be people that's gonna be really really easy for them to play the guitar. Others are gonna be more need more practice. Some of them are going to be able to just sing songs along with their friends around the campfire. Others are going to go on to play in a band and be famous about it. So it's a matter of just allowing yourself to get in touch with that part of you.
Okay, but allowing yourself, but once you sort of ask the question to any entity, you're open up to say, I need somebody to take up my cause. I need some advice from, but how do you ask that question?
Uh, there are a couple of ways you can do it. The easier one that we usually do when we're starting to practice is that you ask the question in the eye of the mind. You say like this place here, like this center of energy, this chakra, to say it
Right.
somehow. So you will start by fixing your mind there before you get in touch with the energy, and try to be as clear as possible on the question and not let your mind wander too much about it. And then there's sort of more advanced way that I like to do, is that I like, for example, so my mind doesn't get too much with ideas that can try to manipulate myself when I channel for me, is that I will have like 3 or 4 questions, for example. So I will write them down on a piece of paper and just number them 1 through 4, and then try to forget the the order I put them through for a while. Go do something else, then I'll come back to my desk, uh, and I will grab a couple of cards that I have, 1 through 4, uh, go through them and randomly pick one, and I will say, okay, now I'm going to answer question number 2, and then I channel and answer that question. That's the way they do it, so my mind doesn't get too much in between myself and the teacher on the other side.
Yeah, I know, I hear these anecdotes a lot about people, particularly often in technical questions, mathematics or whatever, and they'll just formulate the question. And as you said, then put it aside and go literally, as they say, sleep on it. And
Right.
they'll very more often than not, they'll come up with a better answer than rather than worrying about it over and over again.
Well, yeah,
To relax your mind and just, ask the question, relax your mind. Now, is that part of channeling when they come up with an answer? I mean, they're getting an answer from some universal source.
in a way, I will say that yes. Maybe scientists are not going to like that, but I will say that in a way the answer is yes, because the mind works with patterns. So the mind tries to do things in the same way that it has done them before that worked. So it goes into that pattern the whole time you're trying to solve something. So, for example, if you are going from New York to I don't know, let's say Philadelphia, for example, there are several ways you can get there. There's not only one road; there are different roads to get there. So the first time you get there, you probably have to make a lot of decisions of which road to take. But then the second time, if that worked, we usually don't try to be so creative about it and we just follow the same road that we did the first time. And if it worked again, we're going to do it again in the same way. And that's because the mind, instead of having to choose many times during the road trip, prefers to just make the decision of let's do the same again. Yes or no?
Right.
Yes. And that's just one decision. So the mind is really economical on trying to have as few decisions as possible. So when we try to get creative, we need to override that mechanism. And if you're thinking too much, that mechanism is just on the whole time. So you need to get out of there, relax a little bit so the mechanism can go off for a while before you get the answer. When you do that, you get into and tap into different ideas from different places because the mind is not as fixed. So you can do that on your own just by sleeping. You're switching brainwave patterns. You're switching states of consciousness to get there. But you can do that by meditating, or you can do that by even better channeling, because you're more prone to stay on the brainwave pattern that's needed to get in touch with that place and have the mind mechanism off. So it works better. So many people do that in a way that's innate to them when you get to some level of proficiency with something, because you just get so relaxed at doing whatever you need to do or whatever you know how to do. For example, sportsmen do it really easily when it's so easy for them to throw a free throw, for example. So they just go into a very creative sort of state that the psychologists call the flow right now. So you go into that flow, which is actually getting into that theta wave while you're awake, and you can have all that creativity throwing through you, and you have like a hyper perception of everything around you. So not only you can get more creative, but you're faster and you are able to have and make better decisions on the fly as well.
Good. Now we'll go to the negative side. Are there any dangers to us in channeling? Are we opening a door that we don't want to open?
No, not really. I will say the biggest danger in channeling is like making your ego too big because you're being like a super spiritual being, and that's the main danger of channeling, because there's nothing really that can come up from the other side that can hurt you, because we're all part of the same God, the same place. So there's nothing really there that can be bad. I'm really more afraid of people than any sort of being that's on the other side.
Sure.
But the main issue could be that you get yourself so much on believing that you're better than others for doing this, that your ego gets inflated and then becomes bulletproof, as most authors say, and when the ego gets spiritualized like that and gets into a bulletproof way, it's very difficult to work with those kind of people, and that's what you see when you usually see sects coming up, or all these documentaries that you can see in Netflix right now about sex and how some sort of guru like hypnotize people into believing they are the chosen one.
Do you have an opinion about incarnations, and can we have simultaneous incarnations? So like you're channeling an entity, but maybe you're also part of our makeup is also part of that entity.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and I say this because I've seen it on others, on some of my students, on some of my clients, and as well on myself. So I've had experiences where I have talked to an incarnation of myself in the future, like 300 years from now, and at the same time I had once an experience, for example, and this was one of the first clients I ever had when I started channeling in public for other people about 12, 13 years ago already. And was this a woman that she wanted to be a singer. And she had a really nice voice, but she was really struggling about it because she felt that she couldn't sing in front of other people. So she will record albums, but then it was really hard for her to just give any sort of public singing, any sort of concert. Uh, and I went into channeling with her, and another part of her soul came up from a different life, talking her about how much she had stopped doing on that life so she could have a better life on this one, and so that she could realize the dream of being a singer. And she had suffered on the other life for that, so that other moment in time, that other incarnation came up and started telling things to her about how to fix herself on being able to sing in front of people and sing in front of an audience. And after the channeling session, we talked, and she told me she had done what the other incarnation had told her about, and that she recognized that from a dream she had, and that afterwards she started being able to sing in front of an audience so much that she started touring and started being a little bit famous around in Chile about her work after that. So I believe that happens. You can get in touch with another incarnation of yourself and be able to ask for help, and you can get it.
okay. Now you said you've been doing this maybe 12 years or so, but that's just sort of training and other people and that type of thing. But when did you originally start knowing that you have an ability, or knowing that you were actually contacting the spiritual world, I guess?
Yeah, I was 21 years old when I have this first channeling experience. It was very abrupt. I remember I was in college. I was on the library studying for for a test, studying for an exam, and I just started getting weird ideas, and feeling that I need to write them down quickly. So as I was there on the library, just reading a book, I took out my pen and paper and started writing about it. And I remember I wrote like 5 whole pages of information that I just didn't know how or why they were there. So at that moment, I had been going to a meditation group every Wednesday night for a while already. So I remember taking those notes to the meditation guide. His name was Sergio, and I told him, like, what's going on? I just started like feeling needed to write this, and now I feel like I have to show it to you. So do you know what in the world is going on with me? He said, like, he like started reading, and he said, like, oh, you're channeling. Like, what's that? I had no idea what was going on. That was in 2001. Like, I believe it was November 2001, something like that. And I was really the start of everything. And then I started like be, become interested in channeling, and at first it was hard for me to just be able to control this. It will come up just at any moment in time, in any place. So I had to start like blocking it, and I blocked it for about 7 years before I found my teacher in she lives in Oregon, and she actually taught me how to control it and how to be able to just let it through whenever I wanted and no one they wanted on the other side.
Anyone else in your family or anyone that you're associated with, friends or thing that have developed these types of skills or this interest?
Well, in my family, my grandfather was the one that introduced me to metaphysics when I was 15, and he started teaching me about metaphysics, numerology, and all sort of those things that he believed in. And I have some brothers that I have one of my brothers that he was really in touch with this when he was younger, but now he has gone into more of a martial arts way of working with it. And um, and right now, friends will everyone around me right now is somehow involved in this.
Yeah, yeah.
In a way already. It's like even the friends that didn't believe in this at first, now they don't go as far as getting a class or training session with me, but they know, and they like to squeeze out sometimes some information what they can.
Um, right. Well, that brings the question. I know you tour sometimes to give lectures, but every day, what's your everyday life in this? Are you working with clients? Are you just teaching, writing?
Yeah,
What do you
well,
do?
yeah, I would like to say that it's pretty normal, but I don't know. It seems normal when you're living it.
Right.
What I'm mostly doing right now is teaching. I'm doing a lot of teachings one-on-one this year. It's
Okay.
something that has really come up like in an unexpected way, with a lot of people wanting to learn this, but in a more private setting. That before I used to do it more in a group setting. But this year has been really special about it because that one-on-one setting has allowed me to have a better understanding of what the person is really needing, what they are learning this, so I can work. I can work, I will say, deeper in a way that allows them to not only get in touch with themselves just for the sake of doing it, but there has been a lot of people coming to try to find a way to heal themselves through channeling, and that's interesting because it's something that's new. So I'm kind of researching that as well.
Right. And whenever I, speak to somebody on some of these subjects, I'm always just sort of surprised that, well, mostly the modern societies, that they don't incorporate meditation. They don't incorporate these subjects in general education.
Right.
And it's just very surprising to me all the time. Um, but
I've seen that the place where they are most using it right now is sports. Like they're using it a lot with the athletes. Meditation, visualization, imagery, and all sort of like NPL. I think it's the NL. No, it's NLP in English actually.
okay.
NLP and all sort of different ways to help the mind be still and perform better. They are really using it on in sports right now, and in settings with doctors and MDs and nurses that work on ERs, and sort of, and those kind of ways. I mean, on those kind of settings, they are really using it a lot more than that you will think of.
Now, I guess the one other question was, is there any additional specific belief system that's needed for channeling?
Not really. You can channel from any belief system actually. The thing is that you need to be flexible on the idea that we have the wisdom inside of you. I mean, it's inside of us. Everyone has the wisdom inside of us, inside of each one of us, and when you can get in touch with that idea, it doesn't matter which belief system you work with. You're going to actually be able to channel that and allow that to come forward. So even if you are a Christian, or even if you are a scientist who doesn't believe in anything else, but believe that in his own or in her own self, that he or she can get the answers from within because they have such a proficiency on what they've done, they will get in touch with that same thing in that flow state and be able to channel the answer, even though they're not going to call it channeling. They'll just say that they got inspired by a dream or a vision or something like that. But it's actually the same process that are getting in touch with.
I know that we've discussed this with some other presenters, and a lot of like tribal cultures, the Native Americans in the United States, the tribal cultures in Africa, they sort of all incorporate this much more than our modern society does. It's like maybe we're just getting back and learning that, but the smaller group society tribes, I think really incorporate a lot of this, particularly their ancestry that they're always in touch with, and they're in touch with nature. It's a matter of, they feel that they're constantly a part of nature, and they're not apart from it. They're not viewing it. They belong to it. And I guess if we can come up with sort of that mentality when we start our approach to say, I'd like to do some channeling, first of all, you got to accept the idea, and then, develop the meditation or some peaceful way of accommodating that.
Right. Yeah. And I believe we lost a little bit of track about getting in touch with that inner part of ourselves in the way that those other cultures do it, in the way that psychology started being born in the West. Mainly because psychologists and Freud and the whole like first wave of psychologists from the 1900s, they really wanted to be recognized by the medical side of things, like trying to get psychology to be a science.
Right.
So they distanced them. They first were together with parapsychologists, but then they started distancing themselves from that and started to make a gap and between those sort of phenomenon with what psychology was. And in that place, well, psychology came up as a really nice way to understand things, and started validating themselves as a science. But many of or a lot of this information about gathering wisdom from within was a little bit lost. We didn't lose it too much on about dreams, for example, but we did lose it from what getting the inner wisdom out is. So we're kind of just trying to recover it somehow, like bringing it together with what is right now, and being able to access it, because everybody can.
Yeah. There are just small groups that are promoting it, small groups of a little bit here, a little bit there. They're, promoting it. And it's hard, but I guess the modern lifestyle, it's sort of hard to put everything aside and, take a step back and recognize things that way, that it's all incorporated with communicating, as you said, within ourselves, recognizing these things, and then trying to communicate more with universal intelligence.
Yeah, and I believe there's a lot of work that can be done in that regard with trying to get in touch with the more formal academy, not through science but through psychology, actually, and be able to talk about these sort of things with psychologists that know not so much about neuroscience, which is another way. But I believe that the way to go to get this as a tool that can be used in therapy, or maybe can be used by more people, is to train psychologists to learn how to do it, and that can open a little bit a wider understanding, because that's where this information got cut off from 100 years ago or so.
Um, is there a particular way to sort of suppress our egos? Because that's one thing, we have to overcome our ego to communicate with the upper realm.
I wouldn't say overcome. You just need to learn how to put it aside for a while. So I like to say that the sort of training that you need to do is like when you're training a puppy. Your ego usually our ego works as a puppy, and the puppy doesn't like to be left alone in the house that you're going out. So if you're doing it the first time, the puppy usually just scrambles all over your place and maybe tears up a couch or something. If you're lucky, they'll just, I don't know, pee on a rug or something like that. But then the more they know you're coming back, and when they get used to you coming back, then you can be sure the ego is going to behave. So as long as you take the puppy out to pee, and give him his food. So the ego behaves in the same way. You need to give them the ego that space that it needs, and the space that the ego needs is to be in touch and be in charge of your body. So you need to train it to be in touch and be in charge of your body functions. And when you can do that, the ego actually behaves pretty well whenever you're channeling, and doesn't mess too much with you.
Okay. So what other ideas would you like to give us to prepare us for channeling, and to really encourage us to channel?
Well, the best way to put it, I would say, is just be curious. You need to be really curious about how deep you can go within yourself and how much wisdom you really have inside yourself. And I believe that's something that the more you go through life and get bored from the way we live in right now, the more you can get in touch with that. So I'll say be able to get bored with a normal life is a good thing to get ready to channel, so you can go explore that inner part of ourselves, and the rest is just wanting to do it, like really helping yourself to get there, and get in touch with what you need, and want to get guidance from a deeper part of yourself, the wisdom. That's the most important part. The other part, it's just I will say it's just a technique, just the pieces of 1, 2, 3 that you need to get in touch with, and then you can go on and on about it. But if someone wants to learn how to do it in a better way and have some guidance, they can call me and have a session, or a training, so they can learn how to do it.
That's true. And in a minute, we'll let you give your information. I had one question, and I bring it up again. Sort of channeling. Can you channel essentially another person that's alive?
Ooh, that's a good question. My answer is no, because that will be called something else. That will be telepathy.
Right.
That wouldn't
Okay.
be channeling, to say it somehow.
But it is just communication between two entities that
Right.
I know, like when they talk about identical twins that are separated by miles and miles, but they can communicate with each other. They know what's
Right.
going on.
Yeah, well, the main things anyway, it's really similar to what you do when you try to be a good channeler. You just need to really learn to know what you have inside you, and I mean consciously and unconsciously. So it's like you need to know what sort of stories you tell in your head every day that they keep repeating themselves, and we know about some of them consciously, but there are also some stories in there that we don't know that are being repeated over there, all the time. So the more you can know about those, the better it's going to be for you to channel, because anything that comes up, it's not yours, but it's coming from another source and not just your own unconscious. So whenever you want to work with telepathy, you actually need to do a very similar thing, but instead of just doing it with yourself, you need to do it with someone else at the same time.
Right.
Like getting to know if we will happen to try to communicate telepathically with each other, we'll need to set up some sort of common ground of what we have inside, so we can know that I'm not going through the stuff that's there, that's mine, that I'm happening to put in there as it was yours. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So how would we get in touch with you if we wanted your services?
Yeah, well, the easier way will be with through my WhatsApp, I guess, right now.
Okay.
So I don't know, you can reach him on my WhatsApp phone right now. It's +569 7768 7723. I hope I said that okay in English. It's like +569 7768 7723. Yeah, that will be the number.
All right.
So that will be the easier way to get in touch with me if you speak English, because you can go into my Instagram, but it's all in Spanish, so maybe you'll
Okay.
get a little bit overwhelmed with
that. Okay, very good. What else can we discuss? What memory would you like to leave us with?
Memory. Oh, that's an interesting question. Well, I would say you really need to be open when you channel, as open as you want to be, because you don't know what's coming from the other side, and try not to judge anything that comes from the other side. I remember once somebody asked a question in a group channeling about what to do with everything that happens in the Muslim world with women, you know. And I felt myself struggling with the question while I was channeling, because my mind started trying to take over to say that that's something that's really bad, you know, because that was my belief at the time. And to say, you know, you can't do that to women and you really need to set them free, because that's my belief. But then the teacher on the other side started answering like, why do you care about women there? Why don't you care about women in your family first? Why don't you try to do something about that?
Yeah.
Why don't you care about the way your husband is treating your daughter? And why don't you care about the way that your nephew is being no niece is being treated, you know,
Right.
by his father, by her father? And it was like it was really tug of war inside of me a little bit, and I remember with the struggle I started like crying while channeling. But it was really interested to understand that for the teachers on the other side and the spirit on the other side, you need to really be able to focus on the moment and on the place where you are, and not so much about others, but more about yourself. So
Yeah. And the channeling, you know, for you, uh, is it an actual dialogue you're receiving, or is it some ideas that form a picture in your mind, or?
for me, it just comes like a whole set of ideas at the same time, like a package of ideas that I can really let out and translate out of myself pretty quickly. But most people in my experience watch pictures and they have images inside of them. That's like the highest percentage of people that I train. They come with that sort of connection. But usually, as you go through the learning experience and the practice, you start like having everything all at once, you know, like ideas, pictures, body sensations, everything lights up when you get there. So for me, I start with the packages, and then like everything lights up and I see pictures, I feel things, and all of that is happening at once.
And then you have to smile and say, that was a good session, right?
No, I usually don't remember a lot of what's going on
Yeah.
in the session. You know, it's like I feel like I had a great nap
Okay.
and I kind of sort of dreamt something. That's the feeling. So I usually ask them like, what did they tell you? Because I don't remember everything. And then when they start telling me, you know, like, oh no, I don't know, I saw a train or something. I mean, they told me about a train. Then I remember seeing the train, and everything starts to come up back again in the way you remember a dream that you didn't fully remember before. You know.
Right. Um, do you get other signs to say, okay, as you said, you got a lot of things going through, but then there'll be something in your day-to-day life when you just see an image and you go, okay, that reminds me of
Yeah.
my last session, you know,
Yeah.
or
Absolutely. Yeah. The
they
whole time.
they send you
Yeah.
messages, right?
Yeah, the whole time that happens, you know, it's like, oh, I remember what I channeled for this lady, like, and sometimes it has happened to me like with years in between, you know. It's like uh I see something in a movie or something like that. It's like, wait, and it usually happens when I'm watching, you know, Netflix with my wife. It's like,
Right.
wait a minute, pause it, you know. I remember I did a session with someone, something like that came up, you know, and it was
Yeah,
years ago.
that's good. It's all good stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
very interesting.
so, okay, again, what can you add? I don't think we want to stop the conversation here. You know,
Yeah, I don't know what else can I add. No.
right,
We have talked a lot about a lot of different things. We have been all over the
right,
place, I guess. Yeah.
right. Um, But that's very good. So, okay. I want to thank you. It's been very informative, enjoyable. It leaves us motivated to go in there and try again the channel, you know. And that's what we need all the time is some extra motivation. You know?
Right, yeah, and with this practice is really important. You know, like you really need to keep practicing for it to come forward in a better way. Yeah.
Okay, so we
Okay.
look forward to seeing you again sometime in New York or
Sure,
New
hope
Jersey
or New Jersey.
or LA or anywhere else in the country. So we look forward to that. And to everyone else on the line, next Tuesday at 7 p.m., we'll have another guest and we'll have an interesting discussion. So again, thank you, Pablo. It's very enjoyable.
Thank you,
I
Mark.
can talk to you. I can talk to you every day of the week and see.
Yeah.
No.
Well, let's see when we can do this again. You know.
Okay,
Let's talk to
very
Ernie.
good.
Find the place and time
Thank
again.
you. And essentially, I know Ernie said, you know, maybe you'd want to do something in Spanish because he's got a larger group in Spanish.
Yeah, well, we'll get in touch with him and see what happens. I always appreciate his help with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you
Thank
much.
you so much, Mark.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, bye-bye.